In fact, I really want to tell you, Dr. Tharoor, we had a poster for the event out, and little mischievous of us, we had all the women, and we had one Shashi Tharoor there. So someone said, well, that is the answer, what women want, and the answer is right there. So here is the answer, guys. Let's have a good session with Dr. Shashi Tharoor.
I was looking like that in the afternoon. My male assistant told me, women don't want that. You better change into something respectable. So here I am. You see?
I think let's give him a round of applause for the change. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And before we, today's session is being Shashi Tharoor. There is a lot that I want to ask you about you. But first, I want to really, the dirty business of politics. You've been talking a lot. We are in this era of Trump tariffs. And also, I want to congratulate you for your role in Operation Sindoor. What you did, you became literally an ambassador for India. We would like to thank you, in fact, for what you did, because the role you played is, no words can thank you. But now, where are we in this vis-a-vis Trump? Where is India, and how do we go forward?
Well, look, I mean, I think that the tariffs are unacceptable, unjust, and unfair, and very difficult to figure out the motivations beyond a certain point. He has an unusual negotiating style. I mean, there's a famous anecdote of when he was being interviewed by Larry King on CNN. And Larry King said, so what's your negotiating style? You're the master of the deal. How do you do it? And he looked at Larry King and said, do you mind if I move my chair away from you? You have terrible breath, do you know? Have people told you that? It's very difficult to sit next to you. And Larry King's face fell. Trump moved his chair. He dominated the rest of the interview. And then later he said, you want to know my negotiating style? That's my negotiating style. So there is something to be said about the schoolyard bully school of negotiation. I mean, I made a comment the other day, which I stand by, which is that when Mr. Trump declares the Indian economy dead and I don't care if it goes down and so on, I think it's really the equivalent of the big school bully telling the smaller kid, your mother is ugly. He may never even have seen his mother, but it's just the idea is to demean the other guy, put him down, make him feel small. So I didn't take the words literally, but I said to people, you've got to take him seriously. He's the president of a major power, which is a very significant trading partner for us. $90 billion of our exports are riding on this. And very clearly, if we do have 50% tariffs at the end of 3 weeks, then no one in America is going to want most of our goods, because there are competitors out there who also manufacture and sell goods. Vietnam, Indonesia, even Pakistan and Bangladesh have lower tariffs than we do, and shockingly, so does China. So if China has 30% tariffs and we have 50, I think we can say goodbye to a very large portion of the American market. What should we do? Well, first of all, we need to diversify. We need to find other markets very quickly that don't have these extortionate tariffs. And Britain is an obvious example, which is we have a free trade agreement where 99% of India's exports to Britain will be duty-free. So we can do well in that market. We can also persuade some companies in Britain to import from India, free of duty, repackage it and ship it to America as British goods and re-export. And that might be one way of keeping hold of some of our market in America without it attracting the Indian 50% tariffs. So diversification is the first part of the answer. A second part of the answer definitely is opening up to completely new markets. There's no question, for example, that there's much more we could be doing in Africa, much more we could be doing in parts of Asia. And the third thing that we can talk about very bluntly, if in the next 3 weeks Mr. Trump does not climb down as a result of a negotiation, and the negotiation is going on, our government people are talking to their government people, and perhaps a modus vivendi can still be found. But if he does not climb down, then I think in all fairness, since he's the one who's introduced the word reciprocal into the business, we should reciprocate. And if there's 50% on Indian exports to America, there should be 50% tariffs in India on American exports to India. Currently, the average Indian tariff on American goods is only 17%. So if our people are going to be hurt, I'm afraid, we will have to give some of our own back. That's very bluntly my view on these three aspects.
So look the bully in the eye, basically. That is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've never believed, even in school, that one should give in to bullies. And I don't think we should give in to anyone's bullying, whether it's on the world stage or whether it's in private life.
It is something that you stand by, as all of us who've been following your career also have seen that, so I will grant you that. In fact, this session should be called What Tharoor Did Not Tell the Indian Parliament, because we missed your speech on Operation Sindoor, since you were one of the guys who had the toughest task in terms of the multi-party delegations. You were sent to the United States. In fielding India's cause, what was the response? What did you tell them? If you can just tell us a bit in brief on that.
Well, a number of things. I mean, I won't waste your entire time talking in great detail about it, because much of this is already on YouTube and many of you have heard it in real time. But the core messaging was, number one, that we were victims of terrorism and that we were exercising our right of self-defense, which every country concedes. America did so when they were attacked in 9/11. Why should we not do so? Secondly, that we had actually exhausted every other available option. You remember in 2008, when the horrible 26/11 attack happened in Mumbai, killing 170 of our people, that even then we did not retaliate militarily. We tried the route of amassing evidence, capturing one of the terrorists alive, and prosecution is what we hoped for, as well as international shaming. With that same evidence, the Americans convicted 2 conspirators. The Pakistanis, 17 years later, have still not prosecuted, let alone convicted anybody. So that didn't sound like a path we could try again. We've also tried the joint investigation route after Pathankot in 2015. Our Prime Minister invited the Pakistanis to come and participate in the investigation. They sent their intelligence agents to an Indian airbase, which horrified our own intelligence side. But then they went back and said that, oh, the Indians did it to themselves, which is not exactly calculated to earn our trust or our faith ever again. So given that, I think I don't blame the government, that we feel we don't have any options but that of retaliating to violence with some exemplary violence of our own, and that's why it was necessary to do the attacks on terror bases. Equally, and I advocated this course in an op-ed in the Indian Express a few days after Pahalgam, which they very cleverly headlined, Hit Hard, Hit Smart. I said we do have to hit them hard, because we can't show that terrorists can walk across the border with impunity, do this and go back to Pakistan without punishment. We have to act, so we have to hit. But secondly, I said hit smart. And why is that? Because we, number one, don't want war. We are focused on our development, on our growth. Investors don't like war zones. You want to attract foreign investment? You don't get known as a country that's perpetually facing war and terror. So what you do is something that will hopefully stop terrorism for a while, discourage it in the future, and teach the sponsors a lesson. What you don't want is for your attack to come across as the opening salvo in a potentially protracted war, because war is not in our interest. That message, I think, is very much the message the government took, and I was able very proudly to echo that message, and that had been my own conviction from before Sindoor happened. Finally, I made the point very clearly that it was extremely important for us that it be understood that we were not acting without just cause. We had the evidence, we had the information. The so-called resistance front had actually claimed credit for the killings in Pahalgam within 45 minutes of the incident, before it had been reported anywhere. No journalists were present. Before the news reached, the resistance front had claimed credit. So we had no doubt where the responsibility lay, because the only people who could have known it was happening were the ones who had ordered it. So we knew what we were doing, number one. And so the claim that Pakistan was making that, oh, we didn't do it, the Indians are just unfairly attacking us, was blown sky high by their own proxies. But the second thing also that I pointed out was that from our point of view, this business of protracted war, we left it up to the Pakistanis from the very, very first moment of Operation Sindoor. What did our briefers say? They said, we have hit terror sites. We have not even hit Pakistani military sites, let alone governmental sites or civilian sites. If the Pakistanis choose to hit, then we will have to hit back. The moment they stop, we will stop because we are done. That message was conveyed systematically throughout. And this is why I was able to also morally argue that please don't talk of things like mediation or bringing about peace between us and so on. We are already on the side of peace. No one needs to persuade us in favor of peace. If anyone needs to be persuaded, it's the other people who send us terrorists to stop doing that. And I say when you talk about mediation, you are implying equivalence. You are implying equivalence between the two parties you want to bring together to peace. I say, but there is no equivalence between terrorists and the innocent holiday makers they killed. There is no equivalence between a state that harbors, incubates, trains, supplies arms, and dispatches terrorists, and a country that is exercising its right of self-defense against terrorists. And because there is no equivalence, don't talk to us of mediation because you'll understand why we can't accept this. And believe me, in every country I went to at every level, this was understood and accepted. And one small sort of little diplomatic victory was in Colombia, where partially because they're so far away and they perhaps hadn't fully understood, they had, when Sindoor began, issued a statement of heartfelt condolences to the Pakistani victims, quote unquote. And we did point out to them this was slightly misplaced and why, and how, in fact, our strikes had very carefully only hit terror sites. And indeed, even the names that have emerged of those who were killed are all of terrorists on various wanted lists. So as far as we were concerned, we were not harming any ordinary people. We even did the attacks after 1 o'clock at night when it was unlikely that regular civilians would be hanging around the compound. So the Colombians withdrew their statement and then issued a new one expressing sympathy and understanding for what India had done. So in all these ways, I think our messaging was the right message. It was well received and it came across very positively for India. I don't think there's a problem there. I think clearly Mr. Trump as an individual has taken a particular tack, but I had no reason to believe that there was widespread support in his government or his administration for turning hostile towards India, which is the net effect of what he has done.
In fact, Shashi Tharoor or Operation Sindoor, I think that's a poem waiting to be happened. Shabana ji is here. Maybe you can darkhast kar sakte hain to Javed Saab to write that. But Shashi, a bit about you. Where are you headed now? Everybody's asking. You are the man of the moment. In fact, this parliament session began with all eyes on Shashi Tharoor.
I'm headed home to pick my sister up and take her to a dinner. Look, I grew up in a household of strong women, so I just do what they tell me. It's very simple.
Well, that's good news for all of us here. But a bit about you've been a diplomat, you're also an author and a politician. Do you regret any of the choices?
Look, I mean, I think I've always believed that anyone who claims they've never had any regrets in life is either incredibly lucky or more likely is lying. Because all of us have made mistakes, have had setbacks, have had bad luck, have had misfortunes, have had tragedies too. So there are always in all our lives things we look back upon and wish either that they hadn't happened or we could have reacted differently or behaved differently. That's normal life, and I don't think I'm different from anybody else there. But broadly speaking, I've had enough faith in myself, and fortunately I've had a clear conscience, so I've not been guilty of any of the very many nameless sins of which I've been accused in the media and so on. And so one weathers these things and goes on, Priya. Ultimately, if you believe that you're here on the planet for a purpose, and that purpose is to make a difference in a constructive way, which is certainly my belief since my childhood, I've always tried in everything I've done, whether it's school, at college, at graduate school in America, then in the UN service, I've always tried to be a force for good, a force for change, somebody who could make a difference and make a difference in the lives of people around me. Sometimes it was just literally, a college classroom full of friends. Sometimes it was an entire constituency, or at the UN, sometimes an entire country, an entire world. But all of these things, at the end of the day, were about doing the best you can, as sincerely as you can, and as effectively as you can. That's what I've done. So as long as you can do that, why regret? Life was, if you had ups and downs, and there were a lot of downs at one time, that's how it was meant to be. The great thing about the Gita is it keeps teaching you Do the right thing and don't worry too much about what comes out of it. If the wrong things come out of it, that was perhaps what it was meant to be. And Hindu philosophy has often taught us, you set out on a journey, there is an accident on the way, but perhaps the site of the accident was the destined destination. So, I mean, I'm not being a fatalist, as you know. I've always believed that whatever fate holds, you also have a tremendous responsibility in your own hands. You may have the best astrological chart, but you walk in front of a speeding truck, you're gone, right? So take some responsibility for your choices, your actions. Life does involve your own will and your own commitments. I'm not at all, but I'm just saying at bottom, there's some things you can't help. And why is it there's some very good people and encounter awful luck, and some very bad people seem to thrive sometimes in the world? We've seen all of this in our lives around us, haven't we? So we just accept that that's sometimes the way the world is. And perhaps sometimes it was meant to be.
Before I let you go, I want just a quick round of, some Shashi Tharoor trivia. Everybody asks you for the word of the day, but I want to ask you for the word of the day in Hindi.
The word of it?
The word of the day. To give us the word of the day, but give us a Hindi word.
A Hindi word?
Ah.
Padho.
Padho.
Because when I'm asked in English, that's always what I say. Read is my word of the day, because honestly, I'm really alarmed about the decline in reading. And I don't think this is reading. I mean, yes, it's a form of reading. I don't deny that you're looking at words and you have to be literate to understand your WhatsApp messages. But the kind of reading I'm talking about, it requires not just literacy, it requires your mind to engage. And that engagement is something we can't afford to lose. I say that to the adults in the room, and I also say to the parents of kids. I think if you can get people to do what's called complex reading. Reading a WhatsApp message is not complex reading, even if things in it are full of complexes, if you get my meaning. I think the truth is that you need to read a lengthy text, understand it, react to it, engage with it intellectually, to grow up as a human being. It's just essential. It's actually a foundational skill for all of us. Many adults say, I have no time to read books anymore, but they've at least read books throughout the period of school and college and have learned growing up. Today, kids are seeing books only as for homework, classwork and homework, and even then, it's a chapter, it's never the whole book, right? So I remember a young friend of mine, and she said her son is not interested in reading. I said, what is he interested in? She said, football. So I said, get him books on football. Make him read what interests him, because that reading, that process of reading, is actually valuable in and of itself, whatever the subject matter may be. So that's the thought I'd leave you all with. And honestly, अगर हिंदी में कहना है तो पढ़ लीजिए please. आपको याद है ना बेटी पढ़ाओ बेटी बचाओ. तो उसी लॉजिक पे मैं कहूँगा पढ़ लीजिए और पढ़ने जरा सिखाइए आपके बच्चों को.
और अगर if you were to write your autobiography, what would you call it? And are you writing it?
I don't know. No, I'm not writing it. As absolutely, no. I was approached 3 times.
Can I write it?
And I kept, perhaps presumptuously, saying that I think I still have a little more life to live. Then I started winning Lifetime Achievement Awards, and now I thought, my God, they really think I'm finished. I'm not sure what I should do now.
No, we're not putting you on the shelf just yet.
I don't know. I mean, in many ways, I mischievously once said, if I write one, it should be called The Man Who Nearly. Because my life seems to be full of all these nearlies, you know. The man who nearly became UN Secretary General, the man who nearly did this and that, the man who sort of nearly set a record in Thiruvananthapuram constituency, the man who who did become the most successful loser in Congress party electoral history, that I can say, because when I lost that vote, I had managed to win more votes than any of the other candidates for president in the preceding 138 years. So there's something there. But I mean, yeah, the man who nearly doesn't seem good enough. No, we'll find something better by the time I'm done.
Okay, last question. We have a whole lot of Bollywood presence here, but I won't make you choose sides. But who is, the favorite film you watch, favorite actor, actress? When I ask Sachin Pilot that question, he goes straight to Wahiza Rahman ka zamana. He says, I don't want to get caught.
My God, he really had to make sure that they were dead as well, so there'd be no
like
question
that.
of any competition. No, that Sachin is
you
a
can take
smart.
a risk.
No, I mean, I too would be wiser to. Because these are, first of all, wonderful talents we have right here in this room. It would be invidious either not to choose any of them or to choose any one of them. So let me just say, we have some terrific talent in our country, in all the woods, in Bollywood, in Mollywood, in Tollywood, and the whole lot of them. There's a lot of wonderful, wonderful talent. I think what they need is the opportunity to be showcased and often to do work that's worthy of their talents. In some ways, it's very often true that we are recognizing people because of their commercial success rather than their achievement as performers, as thespians, as committed actors. And sometimes you see people later in life in the most unlikely roles bringing out qualities that they didn't have a chance to depict when they were just shown for their beauty or their ability to dance or whatever else. So I would say that let's keep finding worthy work, worthy of the talents, of the wonderful talents we have in the industry.
Okay, I have one last question for the audience. If there was one word to describe Shashi Tharoor, what would that word be? How do we describe the man of words? Sorry? Mind throb of the nation. I like that.
Okay.
Sorry, what was that? Mind what?
Mind throb of the nation.
Well, I'll accept it. Thank you very much.
Best person in Congress.
There's a new word there.
That comes with a timestamp, perhaps.
Thank you.
There's a word of the day right there, mind throb for you. We've heard of heart throbs, but there you are, mind throb. Thank you so